Welcome to the Daily Boogie.
All right, let's do this. The weekly Stelter.
I think
Let's
Wired
go.
magazine editor Nick Thompson summed up this week best. He wrote this. He said, America is where the high schoolers act like leaders and the leaders act like they're in high school.
Damn, Brian nailed it. see, me and Brian. Brian Stelter cops a lot of flack. I don't think he gets respected enough. I really don't. I think Brian Stelter is on the money more often than not. I think he's a fantastic... Is he I don't think he's a journalist. He's an opinion guy on CNN. I don't think he necessarily qualifies as a journalist. But yes, that's a Stelter burn. You've just been Stelter burned. This is the weekly Stelter. I haven't pre-watched this. This is the way I like to watch Brian Stelter videos. I just enjoy the ride. Go with it. See where it takes us. We've witnessed the high standards that Australia has to offer. So Brian tells us that your leaders act like high schoolers. Hey, he might be right. Let's go. The weekly Stelter.
Unfortunately, two stories have merged this weekend.
Merged.
The pain that we all feel after the latest mass shooting, and then the confusion we all feel about the Russia probes. These stories have come together. While these grieving students in
The pain of the shooting and the confusion of the Russia probe. They're the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. I know everyone's really confused about the Russia probe. Remember we touched on this not long ago? Brian didn't want the memo released, for example, because he said it would be too confusing for the population. The population's very confused. And as a solid real news journalist, Brian Stelter correctly identified that more information from government to the population would be a bad thing. This is what good journalism is in 2018. You know, don't laugh. Good journalism means not finding stuff out. It actually means saying to the government, no! Don't you dare tell me. Don't you dare tell me what you've got. I don't want to know. The public doesn't want to know. They're very confused. So Brian, once again, he nails it.
Parkland, Florida, are asking politicians to protect them and announcing a march on Washington. The President of the United States is making it about himself. President Trump tweeting overnight, it's very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter.
Oh, clearly talking about himself there. How narcissistic of the Donald.
This is not acceptable. He's right about that. But then he continued by saying they at the FBI, are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. It's clear the president is feeling the heat of Robert Mueller's special counsel, and he's lashing out, implying that the FBI might have failed to stop.
Call me cynical. Now work with me here. On the one hand, we hate it when Donald Trump tweets. We hate it. We absolutely hate it. We do not want the Donald tweeting. This is very unpresidential. This is horrific. How can he tweet these things? He's a madman. On the other hand, since we don't want to get memos and information released from government, Brian, what the hell would we talk about for an hour? What would our show be about? Do not tell me information and don't tweet. I'll fill in the gaps. He's a pro. He's an absolute pro.
Stop the shooting because it's too obsessed with Russia. Let's be clear. The president is insulting your intelligence. Let's pull up FBI.gov. It says right there, the FBI employs 35,000 people. There are a small number of FBI agents working on the Mueller probe, but they have nothing to do with the investigation of tips like the one that was missed before the Parkland shooting.
At least we know what our federal agents have been doing recently, why they were too busy to stop school shootings. They've been chasing down bad Facebook trolls.
This is the FBI that spends all their time, all their manpower, and all their resources going after a failed Russian conspiracy that never existed. And they should be going after bad guys.
How many agents have been taken off the duty of investigating terror and domestic terror to follow these political
I can't believe Geraldo is still around. I had no idea.
ends?
Aha. So that's where President Trump got the idea. Yes, this has been a talking point from pro-Trump media ever since Friday.
Pro-Trump media.
There's a link between the FBI's failure and the ongoing Russia probes. Again, this is nonsensical. But I want you to see what's going on behind the scenes. Geraldo said that on TV on Saturday morning. And then on Saturday evening...
That no Nazi Geraldo Rivera.
What did Geraldo do? He was at Mar-a-Lago. He had dinner with President Trump.
Oh, he's colluding with the president. That known bigot, that known racist, that known right-wing extremist Geraldo. He's a Russian spy. Didn't you know? Didn't you know?
That's according to new reporting from the Washington Post. Now, when did Trump tweet that nonsensical claim? 11 p.m. Saturday. You tell me if you think there's a connection there.
Oh, there's a connection.
But the tweets have continued all weekend long. Here are just some of the tweets from the president.
You tell me if there's a connection there. I'm not going to say it because, you know, Geraldo is still somebody in this business. I'm not going to infer. You tell me. I'm just going to say it.
You look at what he's doing here. He's undercutting his own national security advisor. He is ranting and raving about the fake media.
Look at what he's doing there. Maybe if you gave us a chance to read it, Brian.
He's got tweets riddled with misspellings and profanity.
Quick, roll through them.
I don't know. Maybe
roll through them so we can't read them.
Maybe in person, President Trump is cool, calm, and collected. But on Twitter, he sounds deeply troubled. He sounds unhinged.
Magator boy can't listen to
about
it.
His fitness for office.
Vander's Fun says he kind of looks like Curly off the Three Stooges.
This is the biggest story that I see happening right now.
He's no Shemp.
So joining me to talk about this and other issues, David Gergen, CNN senior political analyst.
David
He's
Gergen.
an advisor to Presidents Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton. And Dan Pfeiffer, CNN political commentator and former senior advisor to President Obama. Both of you have at one time or another been communications directors for presidents. You've both been inside the White House.
Who do we go to in a political world? Who do we go to in the political realm for the absolute truth, minus the spin, minus the rhetoric, minus the manipulation? I know. Let's go to the communications director of former presidents. Literally a PR rep on steroids. If you thought the advertising agencies were good, that, you know, they want to be PR directors for presidents. Let's go to the communications director. Reliable sources. At reliable sources. Let's talk to two communications director. Twice as good. Let's get two communications directors in at the same time, and they can play rhetorical ping pong with the audience. Reliable sources. Brian Stelter.
So I want to try to assess what we learned from this presidential tweet storm.
What did we
David
learn
Gergen,
from the
first
tweet
to
storm?
You. Is this unhinged?
It reminds me very much of the last days of President Nixon when he became deeply in.
Let's do a very serious question first up. Is this unhinged? What did we learn from the tweet storm? What a question. What did we learn from the tweet storm? What did we learn about Donald Trump's tweets over the weekend, Mr. Communications Director? Is this unhinged? Well, it reminded me of Richard Nixon. Yes, I bet it did. Richard Nixon on Twitter was like a fucking madman, man. Richard Nixon on Twitter, like, laid the smack down. It was all about Richard Nixon. They couldn't pry the phone out of his hand with a crowbar. Old Tricky Dicky. Big on the Twitter, Richard Nixon.
Secure, lashed out in all sorts of ways, and didn't remain focused on the job at hand. And this, I'm afraid, has been the President Trump's pattern now for some time. I don't know why he's so insecure. It certainly suggests, as Mueller closes in more, that there is something he very much does not want us to know, and he's very afraid that Mueller is going to get there.
Yep.
But I also...
Yes, because when you have something that you don't want anyone to know, what you do is make yourself very public and very visible and very open to attack via Twitter as much as possible. This is fantastic logic from the communications director. The communications director is calling it as he sees it, with no spin whatsoever, no slant put on the situation at all. The communications director knows exactly, he knows communications. He knows it. And he can ascertain from Trump's communications that yes, he is indeed unhinged. He's acting just as Richard Nixon acted, and he's trying to hide something from Robert Mueller. This is incredible stuff.
I also think, Brian, and Dan can speak to this well, the
Yeah,
way
Dan,
the White House runs,
help me out, bro.
People in the staff take their cues from the top, from the president. And if he is deceptive, if he is dishonest with the public, then what you find in the White House is a culture of deceit and deception. And they can't get their story straight because there hasn't been a history of trying to be straight.
What the hell is he talking about? What did we learn from the Twitter storm? Well, we learnt that there's a culture of deceit in the White House, and they can't get their story straight, and they've never gotten their story straight, and they're trying to hide things from Robert Mueller. Okay. He's, we've got to give him respect. He knows he has been a communications director. He knows how to direct communications, I assume. So let's move on to CD2, communications director number 2, younger guy, less experience, still older than Brian, though.
Is that what you see today?
That's what I see today, yes. I think that we have an extraordinary
Stick
situation
with the old white
where
guy.
that tweet you just from Mr. Thompson, I thought, put it just right. We're under assault in all sorts of ways, as we've seen in this past week, and the press has been chronicling.
We're under assault. It's snipers. It's snipers in Bosnia all over again, ladies and gentlemen.
And our nation is obviously now under assault from the Russians on our elections, not just the 2016, but as we head into 2018. Our children are under assault in their schools.
Our children are under assault.
Dreamers are under assault from
Dreamers are under
assault. And there's no moral leadership.
He's not a dreamer and he's not a school child. Why does he keep saying we are under assault?
From Washington, from the Congress or the White House, frankly.
Ted Dabrowski says, what's with the tilt with the guy on the right? Maybe his chair is a little bit uneven. Maybe he's levitating, but he hasn't quite worked out the knack yet. It's time to summon another demon.
And where is the moral leadership coming from? I'm here in Broward County as we speak, just a few blocks away from where 1,000 people gathered. And the moral leadership came from those young 18-year-olds, like Emma Gonzalez. Wonderful, compelling speech.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So, Dan, I guess I'm left wondering, why hasn't someone taken away the president's cell phone? Why are these tweets still coming out?
Why haven't we taken away the president's cell phone? Free speech is under attack in America. We need to take away the president's cell phone, just like we did with Richard Nixon. The free press is under attack. We're under assault. Take his cell phone away.
Why isn't there a support structure at the White House to save him from himself?
Yes. So, okay, here's the two questions we've had so far from my man Brian. Number one question to communications director number 1 was, is this unhinged? Question number 2 to communications director number 2, why isn't there a support structure at the White House to save the president from himself? I mean, if you want real news and not laced with opinion, what you do is ask 2 communications directors on. Remember, this is the show's called Reliable Sources. These 2 guys must be reliable. I mean, look at the heading. Look at the name of the show. They wouldn't be on there if it wasn't reliable. So I'm very eager to find out why the president doesn't have a support structure in the White House to save him from himself and take his phone away to save the rest of us from being under assault in terms of free speech.
Well, for two reasons. One, Trump doesn't want it, and he won't allow it. Even if you take General Kelly, someone who had a lifetime of experience in the military, he said his job is not to read the president's tweets. He doesn't pay attention to Twitter, which is sort of like a chief of staff saying, I don't care what the president says, because this is the President Trump's form of communication. And the people who, there is a selection bias in the people who have ended up working in this White House. The top tier of best known, best experienced Republican operatives, people who work for George W. Bush or Mitt Romney or others, have chosen not to be in this White House because they...
Wouldn't you know it? There's a selection bias for the people that have been hired to White House jobs. Oh my God, this is horrendous. Every previous president hired people that they absolutely hated to be their closest employees. See, this guy's truly a fascist because he's hired people that he expects something from to do a certain job the way he wants them to do it. I can't even. I just can't even. All the other presidents, previous knew the wisdom of hiring all the people that shouldn't be there. They were smart. Communications director number 2 on reliable sources.
They don't trust Donald Trump. So the people who are there are people who have come basically directly from the Fox News set and are sort of people who are willing to risk career suicide, risk legal jeopardy.
They've come directly from the Fox News set. They're willing to risk career suicide. That tells me as a communications director, they don't really care. They don't care. Remember, it's like, well, I can't do anything about the president. He has no support structure. They don't care enough. Why? Because they're willing to risk career suicide in order to do the job. Oh, I see. They care so much, not much, that they're willing to risk career suicide in order to not do anything in terms of taking the phone from the president.
For the glory, I guess, or the glory of serving Trump. And so the president is inexperienced and incapable of the job he's doing. The people he surrounded himself are inexperienced and incapable of the job they've been assigned to do.
In the press office, one of the deputy press secretaries, Hogan Gidley.
Abba says, "Is this an SNL skit?" No, I'm afraid not. This is good writing. What you're seeing here, these guys are pros. They're communications directors. Come on. If we could get a few more communications directors onto the set of SNL, then you'll see some results, ladies and gentlemen.
Has been on a Fox News interview tour recently. This is from one of his interviews where he essentially said, it's the media's fault. You all are worse than a hostile foreign government.
There are two groups that have created chaos more than the Russians, and that's the Democrats and the mainstream media.
No surprise, Russia Today.
That's a fair quote there. One line from a 10-minute interview. Thanks, Brian.
Hey, ate that up. We can put on screen the tweet from Russia Today. This is the Kremlin-controlled media outlet that was promoting what Gidley said. Dan, your reaction?
Anytime RT puts in a headline something that a Republican says, it just proves the collusion. It proves it. Look at this. They're still colluding after the election. RT, you devilish comrades.
Look, this is the incentive structure for Trump staff. I'm sure Hogan Gidley, who is a mid-level staffer there, got a high five from the president for saying that. And whether they are unwitting or witting, they are being tools of the Russian propaganda machine. Because I think what they're essentially doing is they have an audience of one in Trump and future career prospects at Fox News, and that is what is driving this. And
Can you figure that out? They have an audience of one in Trump and future career prospects in news. Remember, this is communications director number 2, who only moments ago said that they're risking career suicide, and they've come from the set of Fox News. So what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is how can we squeeze in Fox News references in 2 minutes as often as possible.
And are sort of people who are willing to risk career suicide, risk legal jeopardy for the glory of being in this White House because they don't trust Donald Trump. So the people who are there are people who have come basically directly from the Fox News set and are sort of people who are willing to risk career suicide, risk legal jeopardy.
So they've come directly from the Fox News set. They're risking career suicide to get a job at Fox News. Yes, you heard it here first on reliable sources.
Whether they are unwitting or witting, they are being tools of the Russian propaganda machine. I think what they're essentially doing is they have an audience of one in Trump and future career prospects at Fox News, and that is what is driving this. And it is
it's what's driving it.
It all goes back to the president. Because
yes, it's all to do with the president. The people who left Fox News to work for the president, risking career suicide, and they only care about getting a job at Fox News, and it's all about the president. I'm convinced.
Because this is what he wants from his staff. These are the kind of staff he wants. And they are doing what he wants them to do.
Even the guy in the middle, look at the face on the guy in the middle. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Even I'm a more experienced communications director than you. But I can't even spin that one into some kind of coherent sense. I think the guy on the right knows it too. He's like, oh, shit. Did I just say that? It's okay. It's okay. I'm a communications director. People will trust me.
That I read all week long.
I'm on reliable sources.
In Vanity Fair. It was in Vanity Fair. It was an interview with Steve Bannon. And let's put on screen what Bannon said.
Vanity Fair.
There's a profanity here we had to excerpt
profanity
out,
in vanity.
The Democrats don't matter. The real opposition is the media.
Did you hear that? Do you remember the shithole? Do you remember the shithole? I was taking bets on how many times CNN would say shithole by the end of the week. It had to be over 50. Had to be. But now that Steve Bannon's saying it, hang on, there's a profanity. Steve Bannon's saying a rude word. We have to blur it out for the viewers. We apologize for this Steve Bannon profanity. If you were watching CNN a month ago, that's all you heard. Shit. Rivers of shit flowing through the television and splashing onto your face as you sit on the lounge and eat your TV dinner, ladies and gentlemen. A torrent of shit coming right out of the tube. Anderson Cooper, he looks so clean cut. Brian Stelter, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. Shit. Steve Bannon, whoa. We need to blur this out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your trigger warning. Faithful viewers of reliable sources, a man named Steve Bannon said a profanity in a magazine.
Quote that I read all week long was in a Michael Lewis piece in Vanity Fair. It was in Vanity Fair. It was an interview with Steve Bannon. And let's put on screen what Bannon said. There's a profanity here we had to excerpt out, but he said
we had to excerpt it out.
The real opposition is the media. And the way to deal with them is to flood the zone with you know what. David Gergen, is that what you see happening? That there's all the tweets, all the messages.
Samuel Steele doesn't like the thought of torrents of shit coming out the TV.
Flood the zone like that.
You got to flood the zone. See the hand movements from.
I think getting to flood.
It's just an attempt to,
let's hit flood the zone.
You know what? David Gergen, is that what you see happening? That there's all the
because Brian can't say shit now. He's relapsed into some kind of involuntary spasm. And how can I best convey shit without saying shit? Because it came from Steve Bannon on this occasion and not myself or Anderson Cooper or Don Lemon. I need to best convey the essence of shit coming through the television. I know. I'll do like a kind of rigor mortis reflex, like my tendon is being yanked by some surgeon at the mortuary.
tweets,
So natural.
all the messages, all the confusing counter narratives. It's just an attempt to flood the zone like that.
Flood the zone. He could be an NBA coach.
Absolutely. I think, and to flood the
Flood
zone
the
in a way that
zone!
discredits other institutions that may become critical to him, starting
Like
with
the
Bob
FBI
Mueller.
or the media or Mueller.
It's
Yeah.
just discrediting the, discrediting.
LeBron's on the ball. Flood the
discrediting
zone.
Mueller, discrediting what may come out through the Justice Department from Mueller.
Defense.
Discrediting the press that will be reporting on
Defense.
what Mueller does, so that a third of the country will believe that it's all overblown or it's been made up or whatever it may be. I think there's been a very clear pattern.
Maga Tallboy
right from the
says, "Shut up and
beginning.
dribble." That's racist now. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's a racist thing to say. Coach Stelter, yeah. Did you know that? Let me riff with you for a second here. Did you know that there's now a show? I didn't watch it. I saw it advertised the other day. Coach Snoop. Did you know Snoop Dogg's now coaching? I didn't know that. I think it's football. I think he's coaching football. Which, he probably should be coaching NASCAR or something. But he's coaching football nonetheless. Coach Snoop. Yeah, real thing. Football, yeah, Coach Snoop. And I thought, what a great example. Like, I can't wait to get my kids into that team with Coach Snoop. But forget about Coach Snoop. Coach Stelter, ladies and gentlemen. Coach Stelter. Today's, we need a pep rally. We need to get you guys up for the big game against the Fox News kids. I know what we'll do. We'll bring in the communications directors. Give me a C. Give me an N. Coach Stelter. Flood the zone! Woo! Football!
That has actually in some ways worked, but because it's kept that base together, but it's eroding the trust in the presidency, the trust in this president around the rest of the country, and it's been extremely damaging, I think, for our sort of sense of being a single people, that we have some sense of unity about our country. And the Russians are laughing at us because they're getting away with this. They're fomenting a lot of this, and there's no sense of urgency, especially in looking ahead. We have an election that's just around the corner later this year. Okay. What if the Democrats,
what if it happens again?
Back? Is that all going to be blamed?
What if the Democrats lose again and it'll be Russia's fault? Russia's still going to get away. Every time the Democrats lose, it's Russia's fault now.
On fake news. What if they fall short? Are Democrats going to think, it was all that meddling, and they've taken those, they won a few seats that they wouldn't have otherwise won.
There we go. We're
This
setting
is
it
what
up.
split the
We're
country
setting it
apart.
up.
And it is the beginnings, in many other countries, it's been the beginnings of an authoritarian rule. And that's the larger threat hanging over us now.
Okay. So the Russian meddling, if the Democrats lose again, it's because of the Russian meddling, and it's leading to authoritarian rule. Here's the thing. There was probably, there was more than likely. there's I forget the Russian term for it. Ted Dabrowski can give us the Slavic spelling of it. Active measures. Active measures is a real thing. It's a real political strategy. And it is doing shit like involving, firing up debates, getting people to go more hardcore against the other side. More often than not, it's not about backing, it's not about trying to get one particular person in. It's just about sowing seeds of chaos in the political system. But we'll get to it, the effect that this apparent, this huge scheme by the Russian government, this huge big plan, this overbearing thing that swayed the entire presidential election, what effect it actually had. We will get to that. It's well documented. It's not much at all. But this kind of... See, now this guy's just using it. He's using it as an excuse. The only reason the Democrats lost is because of the Russian involvement and the meddling, you see. They were fomenting anger and division. You see, we're the party of unity. They don't have any chance for mea culpa. The only chance that the Democrats have moving forward to get beyond this and to actually become some kind of a semblance of something, substantial, in a political form once again, is mea culpa has to take place. They have to understand at one level or another that they could have done better. They could have done better. Whether they will or not, I'm not sure. But they have to. That's where it has to get to. Check this out. Even the Washington Post is on board. The US political conversation is not and probably never was driven by Russian social media bots. Over the past several weeks, automated social media accounts powered by Russian actors have been blamed for 1. Driving the push to release the memo by Representative Devin Nunes about the FBI, 2. Forcing Senator Al Franken from office, 3. Flooding the public conversation in the wake of a mass shooting at a Florida high school. Oh, and number 4. Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III's announced federal charges targeting Russian individuals who engaged in deceptive online activity during and after. It's a bit hard to collude after a presidential campaign. The 2016 presidential campaign with the apparent goal of bolstering Donald Trump's candidacy and sowing division in the United States. It's easy to read that litany and uncritically assume that our politics are guided by an insidious foreign hand, so many things of such significance tainted by Russian actors. What, after all, can we trust? The problem with that list, though, is that it is alarmist both as presented and to a lesser extent as reported. There simply isn't any evidence that bots linked to the Russian government had or have had any significant effect on the US political conversation. The well-known right-wing bigot Nazi newspaper, ladies and gentlemen, the Washington Post. But let's ignore them. Let's go to Twitter themselves.
Recognizing that our findings may be supplemented as we work with committee staff and other companies, discover more facts, and gain a greater understanding of these events. My written testimony details the methodology and current findings of the retrospective review in detail. We studied tweets from the period September 1 to November 15, 2016. During that time, we did find automated and coordinated activity of interest. We determined that the number of accounts we could link to Russia and that were tweeting election-related content was comparatively small, around 1/100% of the total Twitter accounts at the time we studied.
Wow. 1/100th of 1%. 1/100th of 1%. Greatly influenced the election, ladies and gentlemen.
Away with this. They're fomenting a lot of this, and there's no sense of urgency, especially in looking ahead. We have an election that's just around the corner later this year. What if the Democrats, take the House back? Is that all going to be blamed on fake news? What if they fall short? Are Democrats going to think, it was all that meddling, and they've taken those?
Now, see, here we have Communications Director, Acting General Counsel, which is a fancy way of saying lawyer, in a congressional hearing giving sworn written testimony. Okay, so let's do that one more time. Former Democrat Communications Director, attorney in a congressional hearing given sworn testimony. Communications Director, lawyer giving sworn written testimony, ladies and gentlemen.
Of interest. We determined that the number of accounts we could link to Russia and that were tweeting election-related content was comparatively small, around 1/100% of the total Twitter accounts at the time we studied.
Wow. That's a far cry from this.
That base together, but it's eroding the trust in the presidency, the trust in this president around the rest of the country, and it's been extremely damaging, I think, for our sort of sense of being a single people, that we have some sense of unity about our country.
The country is literally falling apart.
And the Russians are laughing at us because they're getting away with this. They're fomenting a lot of this, and there's no sense of urgency, especially in looking ahead. We have an election that's just around the corner later this year. What if the Democrats, take the House back? Is that all going to be blamed on fake news?
Oh, I'm sure.
What
it
if
will.
they fall short? Are Democrats going to think, it was all that meddling, and they've taken those, so they won a few seats that they wouldn't have otherwise won? This is what split the country apart, and it is the beginnings. In many other countries, it's been the beginnings of an authoritarian rule.
Okay, so this is what splits the country apart. It's the beginnings of an authoritarian rule. Its democracy is ending as we know it. Hitler is like Hitler is like Moses, parting the waves, parting the seas of Russian bots, and like goose stepping all the way to the White House, ladies and gentlemen. It's the end of democracy as we know it. If the Democrats fall short, it will be because of all of this meddling. All of it. All 1/100th of 1% of it.
And that where tweeting election-related content was comparatively small, around 1/100th% of the total Twitter accounts at the time we studied.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, Linesman. That is how you kill a democracy. Russian bot style. Let's hear from Joy Behar.
ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians.
Yay! All 1/100th of 1% of them. Woo! Yay! Wow. Wow. Oh, isn't she proud of herself too? Oh, yes. Yes. Joy. You nailed it, Joy. Democracy is tearing apart at the seams. 1/100th of 1% of all Twitter traffic. That should be encouraging to people. That should be encouraging to folks, I think. I don't have a big following on Twitter. I've got barely any following at all. But now I know. Now I know. And you should take encouragement from this too. We're all just fellow peasants here in this ride called Western civilization as we know it. That's coming apart at the seams thanks to the Russian bots. But you should take pride in knowing that just being 1/100th of 1%, you too can install a president. Yay! What do you want to grow up What do you want to be when you grow up, Timmy? Do you want to be the president? No. I want to be part of the 100th of 1%. Oh, you want to be really rich? Nah. Just a nameless troll. I will be the puppet master, Dmitri. Yevgeny, we have discovered the Americans' weakness. America cares about big things. We will be small things. Very small. How small, Dmitri? Very small, Yevgeny. Like 1/100th of 1%. And we will snap them like twigs.